And sharing screen. And here we go. All right, so welcome to the GreenDesk Green IT training on the payment manager. The objective of this session is to walk this through, first conceptually, what data is in the payment manager, and then how to work it. This is an aggregated interface or a consolidated interface that will be able to be able to look across projects. Sarah will have some interest, Caitlin, other projects, and I'll show you tools to filter that today in the payment manager so that y'all can have distinct management. That said, to access the payment manager, I'm going to go to features top here. Going to scroll down for payment manager and then actually access the tool that's called the payment manager. There are several tabs here, and I'll get to each of them in turn, but there's a bit of a sequence with them, at least the first five, and I'll use those to essentially lay out the narrative of what's happening in GreenDesk. So payments are calculated and made available in the system upon the execution of agreements. There's more to it, of course, because the payments might be operations payments. So for a Ranger development project, the operations terms payments don't get calculated until we hit certain milestones. So those are two dependencies. The first being I need an executed agreement, and then I need to have triggered my appropriate milestones. For Connor on the line here, thinking about the RACI and responsibilities, this is big. We need to make sure that development effective date is kicked off for the project, or construction commencement, COD, and a whole host of other milestones that are important for payments will be needed to be triggered. And of course, then having an agreement executed, backfilled, and or through the workflow in the system ready to go. Once those are, those prerequisites are met, the payments are calculated and they're available at the project level. So if I were just to tool over here, portfolio, and go into solar, and let's just go to KS2, an operational project, and then move over into land module, I can see in the compliance table here that I have payments. In fact, I've got a payment that was due on August 1 that's in the system. Beyond that, I have payments for going in the future for the project, and this is available at the project level. If I were to go further and take a look at the entity itself, so I'm going to select the entity, take a look in here, I'm going to get a compliance tab, and I'm going to see payments in here as well. So these payments are associated to the entity and this agreement. So this is the executed agreement. Just rolling up again here, if there were multiple entities and multiple agreements in the project, the land module compliance will show me all of those payments. There's a couple views here. Payment view is kind of easier on the eyes and just more specific, but this is at the project level. Again, if I go over to features, payment manager, here I am in a consolidated view, and I'm going to be able to see payments across projects. So for most of the folks on the phone, I think Jesse Pohl will be the exception here. The exception being you're probably going to be focused at the project level, but imagining Caitlin and Sarah, you're going to be focused more at what we consider to be like the AP level or the supervisory payment level. Here in Payment Manager, in the first tab, Open Commitments, the default query is to show me payments that are upcoming and due within a certain date range, and then anything else that's overdue as well. So it's going to be a quick hit of what's due. And I can query this, of course. I could just build a filter and say, hey, show me projects that are early stage. So that's going to pick all the Ranger projects. Show me things that are mid to late stage. That's going to be what Liz has in her portfolio. And then if I were to look here at operating, of course, it's going to be the ops portfolio. So there's a lot of different status available for the project that will help me filter what I'm looking at. The big thing to note here, though, is the default query is based on the next 30 days. So it's showing me what's due today to, well, next month, September 25. That's just by default. You can adjust that when you enter this screen. You can adjust what you want to view. The goal, though, of this tab is to build a collection. Within GreenDesk, a collection represents bunch of payments that I want to get paid, a bunch of payments that I want to push out of GreenDesk and get them into Workday. And it's in open commitments that I make decisions about, well, what payments I want to put in that collection. This is a pretty simple interface. A collection receives a name, we name it, and then we put payments in it. There's an advanced feature where we can take payments out of it and we can put payments into an existing collection. And I'm going to show you how to click on those buttons in a moment. But the high level conceptual item here to note is payments are joined into collections. Collections are then pushed through a workflow and then pushed over automatically into Workday. So this interface here will help me build collections. And once I create a collection, it will wind up in the draft status. Here's a collection. There's one payment in this draft right now. Drafts are then approved to be what's considered to be the review status. And here you can see there's a bunch of project payments in here. And then once we're approved, it then moves into in process, which means it's pending for Workday. That's an automated interface. And then finally the archive, meaning we've paid these and they're done. The only way to become archived is to be paid. And truly, once the automation with Workday is live, the only way to mark anything paid is through Workday. So archive is something that automatically happens. Paid is something that automatically happens. The team will need to be mindful of that. But the life cycle here, I want to build a collection. Let's get some payments moving. All right, let's get them approved. Once they're approved, they're out of GreenDesk and into Workday. They get paid in Workday, and then poof, we have everything that's paid. And that's the sequence. Open commitments is the beginning. You build a collection. Draft, review, in process, and archive is the life cycle of that collection. And that's really what we're doing here. We're pushing from left all the way over here to archive. There's two more tabs, payment lookup. It's just a nice search tool for all payments in the system. And I can filter in here for unpaid and paid. And I'll show you how to use this in a moment. And then there's this concept of a hold, of which there are no holds currently. But I got a payment that's due. However, I know that the landowner is moving, and I'm just gonna, I know it's gonna become overdue, but I'm gonna put it on hold so that I don't push it into Workday, or my colleagues don't push it into Workday. I know we don't want to send this now for some reason. There's a hold feature. I'm going to show you how to access that as well, but that's your way to kind of like hang on to the payments. There's an advanced feature set for void, and we'll do that in a follow-up training. There's not a lot of automation available for voids in Workday. You still need to make them known as a void in GreenDesk. But there's a slightly different process than typical, what you would consider to be an automated set. And we don't have that with Workday. So there will be a hybrid, make a request, do it manually, and that's how you do void. And we'll do that in a follow-up. All right, let's go through the interfaces. We'll start with building a collection and then approving collections. But principally, there's two things for us to do. But before I do that, just want to pause here and open up for any questions, kind of my conceptual primer of what we're doing in GreenDesk. Caitlin, I know this is something you wanted to get through for a while now. Here we are in the session, so open any questions. Sarah, I know that you've wanted to see this as well. So please, any questions that you have. We are going to do all the technical stuff and build collections now, but any conceptual questions to get us started.
I just have one question related to the open commitments to draft, to review, to in process. Is there a certain hierarchy that we're able to build in GreenDesk on who actually approves the collections and the draft and the review payments?
Yeah, that's right. It can be custom configured. There's concepts of as a delegation of authority, DOA, that's based on projects and dollar amounts. And it's pretty granular. You could create a scheme where you got 15 different approvers based on projects and dollar ranges. But you could also just put, you create it and Jesse approves. So you could get very detailed, or you could have a very simple hierarchy, and that is configurable in the software.
Okay, and that's only with admin users, is that correct?
So configuring it, it's limited who can configure it, but your approvers can be any approver in this, any user in the system, you could delegate as having a responsibility to approve.
Okay.
So not everybody is going to be able to go in and say, this is our approval scheme. In fact, very few users will be able to set up the scheme. But if you were to determine Danny's an approver, Jesse's an approver, and this new intern is an approver, maybe there are different rights, but you certainly can give them that approval level. Now, I'm not advocating that you build a scheme just like that, but you are flexible.
Okay, that sounds great.
So Andrew, adding on to that, if you're building a collection here and the asset manager, let's just use KS2, Mississippi and North Star. I have 3 different asset managers for those 3 projects, and I want to build a collection. And is the thought here, and maybe Connor, this is a question for you, like, is the thought here the 3 different asset managers will approve that collection, or it's one asset manager from DESRI or Headwater will be responsible for all of this land, and then once it gets into Workday, it'll just follow the normal, what we have set up as a business process?
Let me check. I know that Connor was in transit. Oh, he's still on.
I don't think, I think asset managers approving in GreenDesk and then again in Workday is a bit redundant. So I think I would want to avoid that if there's a way to do that.
I don't disagree, but when you build a collection, can you have multiple approvers, or is the thought here that we will, I don't know, let me just use Hitachi as a point of reference. She'll build the collection, and then I don't know, Connor, I'll use you. You'll be the approver for all these projects in GreenDesk, and then we'll follow normal process in Workday.
Andrew, is this just for land payments?
Yes, it's just for these collections. That's correct. And you can have one or many. And let me pull up for you a screen that will help you see how you can do this. Yeah. All right. So this is, we're going to set up a $10,000 dollar limit for these. An approval range here, $10,000 here to $10,000 for these projects. And then we're going to assign users to it. And there's a variety of different types here. But if it's really just going to be one user, we put them across the board, but we can establish development payments to be associated to Carter, and construction payments to be associated to CAT and ops and so on. So there's lots of different nuance to this here, but the levers that you have are approval range, projects, and then you can get very nuanced with phase and type of payment. And if it'd be easier, y'all can just think through what your RACI is and then just hand that off and we can configure it for you. But for sure, it can be one, or as Sarah was noting, maybe like an asset manager per project. Like you could do it that way as well. So there's a lot of different, you could go either direction. And it's truly up to the team to determine which way they want to go.
I don't have clear direction or ideas on that at the moment.
No problem. We can, for purposes of this demo, just push things through. We could get them approved. However, together, when you're ready, we can, either have an email conversation or hop on another call, or if you just have the final DESRI decision, we can configure that. And mind you, the DESRI scheme, because we're talking about certain projects in the development phase, construction and ops, and the Ranger scheme, which are certain development projects, those schemes can be and often are different. So Ranger, Caitlin, you can develop a scheme that you think is good for your team, and we can configure that separately. Now, I want to highlight in both cases, think about controls. The same person that builds a collection should not be approving the payments. Also, think about the same person who's authorized or executed an agreement should not be the one that builds a collection and approves. You want to have different individuals here so that there's not a cheat code here to get from hotwiring a payment through GreenDesk to getting it approved, to pushing it into Workday, to kicking out a check. So I'm sure that's on everybody's mind here. Controls are important, and are happy to implement or just have a design conversation as you evolve your thoughts. That said, let's continue with the AP process right now. And to do that, let's return to open commitments and this concept of building a collection. Team, this is not very complicated, but there are a couple different ways to go. So here, the default load, the next 30 days of payments includes some LA County, Mississippi Solar, I got some North Star in here, some Searchlight, I got a whole bunch of different payments here. And truthfully, very easily, I could just put this in a collection right now, 202108225 demo, and I could put them all in here. All project payments, it's currently selected, so they're all in. I deselect it, and now they're all off. Also, if I look at the column header or the actions over here on the right, I have this option for all project. If I select all project here and actually deselect it for LAX, you'll see that both of the LAXs are no longer selected. So I can decide, you know what, I really like this, but I don't want to pay right now LAX logistics. Let's get that out of there. Also, I want to cherry pick. I don't want KS2. I don't want Mississippi. I want to pay Leyline and North Star. I can pick and choose what I want. This list can get huge. I'm just looking at 30 days, so there's not a ton in here right now. So if I really like this collection, this is what I want to build, I'm going to click submit. When I click submit, it redirects me to draft, and my collection is here. I could click on it and I could see all the payments that I selected, as well as the individual, I see the projects and their total here. And I can even click it and it takes me to the project in the list. This is the collection view. I can export this, and I can even export statement letters to Caitlin, and I know that Hitachi's going to be interested in this. There is a letter export. I just clicked it right now. It's making a little zip folder. In the zip, there are statement letters for each and every one of these payments. That said, here is the collection view. But you know what? I missed some payments. I want to get more in here. No problem. Click the payment manager link, takes me back to the payment manager tabs. I'm going to go back to open commitments. And on second thought, I really want to include that KS2 payment. So I'm not going to include these, but I want to include this, and I want to put it in that schedule, or I'm sorry, in that collection that I created. So instead of naming it here, I just go add to existing. I've got that one selected as include, and now I click submit, and it's now added that KS2 payment to my collection. And that's perfect. That's what I wanted to do. Now, you know what? That's the wrong payment. I don't want this one. Let's get rid of it. I'm in the collection view. So I'm looking at everything in here, and I have access to exclude. Exclude, get you out of here. You know what? I'm going to exclude this band noise one as well. Click submit, and poof, they're gone. So when I go back to open commitments, they're back in the list. So when I build a collection and I get it into draft, I could keep adding. I could also exclude. Again, to add to a collection, I go back to open commitments, and instead of creating a new one named draft collection or add to existing, I select the add to existing. Now I'm looking at the next 30 days, but you know what? I really want to pay November right now. So I could build a filter. I'm going to do a filter now for all projects. Got it. And I'm going to do filter for November 1 through 11/30. Cool. Building a filter. I've got a whole bunch of payments now, and I want to include, let's find something good here. What do I got in multiple projects? I don't have anything in multiple projects, but I'm going to pick this one, and then that one. Cool. I'm going to add it to my collection, click submit. Oh, I need to put project countries in some of these. There's a limitation in here that doesn't, it precludes you from adding projects that haven't been tagged for US. So it is to say you can do a check run for US and Canada only. There are some GreenDesk projects that have been missing the country flag, and those need to be added in. So there's a flag that's going to prevent us from doing out of country payment. In this case, we just need to make sure that everything is in the US. Regardless, I've added a bunch of payments now. Aaron's coming into the room, letting him in. And that's again how we manage this. Back into the collection itself, I'm going to remove some payments. I want to get rid of this Springbok one. And again, down to the bottom, click submit, and I'm good. There's an updates log here that'll give me some history of when the collection was created. And I can also add notes here, work in progress, to meet with team to clarify other payments, something like that. So I can add notes to this as well. And I can not only build the collection payments, but I can also have a bit of a conversation in here. I can always export the list, and I've exported it right now. And I have here just a rundown. Where is it? Just a basic export is available. It's the same thing that's in the list, or the same thing that's on the screen. So back to payment manager here. And in my draft view, this thing is looking pretty good. And now the objective is for the AP user to get this thing, to get it to review. So whoever's building the collection, you hold the first approval to say, okay, I'm ready for others to review this and start approving. I'm ready for others to get involved now to put in their approval. So in this case, I'm going to click approve to review, and we'll click back now. And it's no longer in draft, because draft is the domain of AP. So right now in open commitments in draft, that's where, and I know it's Caitlin. I'm not quite sure who's doing it on the DESRI side, but that's where you do your work. And it is not until you give the approval that it's then going to be subject to the approval process. So we don't have our official approval set up right now. So we're kind of stalled with this collection. So it's kind of pending right now. They need to be set up. And I had that screen up earlier where we were looking at the approvals that need to be there. Again, it was, and I'll put it on screen one more time. So obviously we'll need to get our projects in here, the appropriate projects and a dollar amount, and then associate them to users. In this case, Hitachi and Sai are the only ones that are set up in the system. But then with their approvals, that's how we'll get out of GreenDesk and into Workday. The approval from review will move it to in process, and that's where Workday does its, that's where the Green IT Workday integration works its magic. And then once it's fully paid, it will show up over here in the archive. But I think the most important thing for us to focus on right now is building collections and getting your AP approval on it. So coming up for air now, pausing, ready for some questions. Team, your thoughts, please?
So once, if you go back into the review, sorry, I may have, was writing. So once in the review here, this is now approved, it will
Nope.
feed over to Workday.
In review, the review status is where our approvers need to do their thing. So the dollar amounts, so the approval range per project, per type, that's their call to action. So Hitachi, and if they were associated to these projects, would receive an email saying, hey, you have a collection ready to be approved. SI would receive them as well. And they would then be entering the software in order to offer their approvals. And I don't have approval set up for myself. If we did have a Hitachi on, it's likely that she would see the AP approval input screen here. And maybe I can hotwire her account. Aaron, do you have a funny account set up for either of those so we can show off that screen?
I can get one going in a sec. Yeah, I hotwired it and unhotwired it. Give me 2 minutes and you'll get it.
Thank you.
So
So
I guess going back to my question earlier about like in this demo, right, collection, you've got multiple projects here. So if you had Hitachi, Sai, Connor, and Adam all set up, they're all different project or asset managers for these projects. Would each person receive an email to, if Adam is assigned KS2, would he only approve that
yeah,
KS2
you
payment
only
request?
approve what you can. So your collections are blended, but your approvals are based on the scheme. So if Adam is KS2 and Connor is North Star, Adam's approval is required to get the KS2 into Workday, and Connor is necessary to get North Star into Workday.
And what is it? Does the entire collection have to be approved to get it into Workday, or can, Connor's out today, but Adam is in and he's approved the KS2?
Yeah, once individual payments, per approval level are approved, they're subject to the sync.
Regardless if they're in a full collection.
Yes. So once payments are approved per the approval scheme, they are subject to the sync. The collection, the container, is a way for the AP team to kind of organize their work, but the approvals per the approval scheme are the gateway into the sync.
Okay.
Andrew, is the AP approver in GreenDesk, is that a separate role, or can that be
It's a
added on
separate permission. It's a separate permission, and I'm near certain that that is going to be tagged for you. Whereas for DESRI, I don't know who is going to be building those collections.
Okay. Yeah, it would most likely be me and Jesse on this.
Yeah, Caitlin, we'll I think we should have a conversation briefly about it offline as well. But I can envision sort of putting together the collections myself and then pushing those to you for approval, which is kind of mirrors how we've been doing that internally so far.
The only thing I would caution for Ranger is to consider if Jesse is the individual who's pushing the data into the system to say, hey, we need to pay these people. You just want to be mindful that Jesse's not the one who's going to say, yeah, pay them. Like it presents a challenge. It just needs to be thought through that there's an appropriate separation of responsibility for who's injecting data and then who's approving a payment. Not that Jesse's up to any bad stuff, but you want to have controls.
No, that's definitely a good call. I think my thought process here is, since these are flowing into Workday at the end of the day, that's where the other approval process lays, where we have additional probably 3 steps of approvals there. and then it just comes back to GreenDesk being noted as paid.
Yep.
So there's, I guess there's two separate approvals going on here, and I think we're trying to avoid redundancy in the approvals here. I think that's just the.
And I think, Sarah, we talked about that fairly early on. We're going to preserve the approvals in Workday. So we don't want to over-engineer your approval scheme coming out of GreenDesk. There needs to be some approval, like the AP team member should say, yes, I'm ready with a collection. And that, there very well could be another level before it exits GreenDesk and heads into Workday. But if you're going to maintain that scheme in Workday as is, then to Caitlin's point, and I think per our earlier discussion, we would go lighter with your approval scheme, your approval scheme in GreenDesk.
Mm-hmm.
And hey, Andrew, just a sort of side question. Can you remind us when the go live date is for the Workday integration?
There is a date that's published. There is also the reality with where they are in the integration. But I think it was September 13 is what they're targeting. We haven't hit testing, but we passed things to them for testing. Nothing has come back yet. So we're, I would offer, I think we're likely to complete the technical elements of the integration by that 13th, but then we might need 2 weeks of testing past that. So it's getting very close to the finish line, and we are not where we want to be as of today.
Okay, that's helpful. Thanks, Andrew.
It's near, it's close, but yeah. And today, this works in that you can export from here. The XML that gets generated and pushed over to Workday and the automated stuff, that's not live in the system currently, but these payments and a lot of payments, thousands of payments based on the agreements that are available for Ranger. And I think there's more agreements that need to come. I think we're hanging on for more to be made available to us, but anything that's in GreenDesk today that the team is considering to be of quality is exportable in an Excel format, which could then be used to be, moved over into Workday. Further, your statement letters are available as well. So there's value to the data that's in there, but the true integration is going to be subject to this getting them to the finish line.
What does the statement letter look like?
So this was provided to us by Ankit Jain. I'll open one for you here. And then Hitakshi has since played with it a bit. Here we go. It's modeled on the letter that they have today.
And if a payment was based on like a calculation, like Balco's landowners are, would that calculation be in here?
The calculated payment would be with its description. We don't show the extended math. I don't believe that was in the template. Yeah, it's just the value, not the calc. It can be, but we don't have that requirement as of today. It sounds like you might want that, but I'm not aware of that as of today.
Okay. Connor, I would probably just speak with Kathy. I know that there were a couple Balco landowners requesting that information. So kind of, I would say it's outside of my realm, but I know she had some queries on it. So just FYI.
Okay. Could someone take a note of that? I'm driving.
Oh yeah, I'll send you a message.
So these templates, Hitakshi has requested to be made available as PDF. There's like a couple tweaks. I think we're changing, maybe it's like the date format. There's like just a couple things that are being changed. Right now, the specimen was given to us in Excel, so we made it in Excel, but I know there's that format change and maybe a couple other things. I think they're workable now, but if you got a calc mod that you want to put in there, let's get that in the, let's have that conversation near term so that we can get that advanced for you. And what I can do now is let's just go backwards. Aaron sent me the credentials. I see that now. And let me log in as a different user. Oh, did we not connect these projects? Aaron, are you still there?
Yeah, sorry, I was fumbling on another screen. You don't got them yet? Scroll down a little. Should have most of them. A few of them I might still be changing some settings on.
Let me go back to Payment Manager. In as a case, into review.
So you got your reject button at the top and the ability to approve many of these.
Perfect. Yep. So I am authorized to do KS2 and North Star. So I have the ability to, from a single click here, click back and forth.
And is it, sorry, if you scroll down just for a moment, now you have the ability to do KS2 North Star, and prior to you refreshing, I don't think you had access to Leyline, correct? Or like, why is Leyline?
Yeah, I'm not the asset manager or developer for Leyline. That's right.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify. All right, so if you're not assigned a project, you'll see the payment request, but you will not be able to approve it.
Yep.
Okay.
And then you got to click submit. And then it's noted as approved. And because there's still other payments in here, it's still in the in review stage, but these that are approved, they're ready to flow. Workday will pick them up.
And then those are in the in process tab.
Yeah, the collection remains to be in process until the collection is fully approved, but payments that are approved for payment are pushed over as a supplier invoice request into, there's an SFTP service where the XML file is passed that Workday picks up and reads, they inject it, they run it, and then they kick back payments, which we collect. And then for any paid payment that we can match the Green IT ID, which we pass to them in that original XML, when that comes back, we say, hey, we've got it. And then we close the payment.
Okay.
Maybe a little.
This a little bit off topic, but more related to the Workday side. I don't know if it was talked about yet, but would you happen to know when that supplier invoice request goes to Workday, does it pull the related agreement as an attachment in Workday, or we'll have to manually upload those into Workday?
The related agreement, like the executed lease?
Yeah, the executed lease.
Definitely not part of the current requirements. Is that required, Sarah?
Not typically. We need some sort of support. That was the requirement.
Yeah. I normally use the basic terms and conditions of the agreement itself as the support.
Well, it sounds like you might be able to adjust that.
We had to, so from Green IT, we had discussed like we needed some sort of attachment. Right? So what would that look like?
Statement, an invoice. It's
Which invoice?
Okay, which then in order to get back to whatever the payment, you could come into Green IT and see the background of that payment, correct?
Yeah, we don't give the URL because this, in theory, this is something that you can print out and give to the landowner. But
Yeah.
from here, I know it's North Star and I know it's in Phil and Clarice Farm. So in this case, I could go to North Star. Is that the wind project? No, that is.
Solar.
There we go. Phil and Clarice, do you exist? Phil and Clarice. Boom. I see their agreements. I see what's executed. I can see the payments. I can see I got a file associated to them here.
So Caitlin, to your point, it would be that Green IT is like our system of record for the lease agreements. And, you know, if Green IT is working and everybody's doing what they need to do, then attaching the invoice / statement to Workday should be sufficient.
Okay, that definitely works. Having that invoice generated.
Yeah. And Andrew, from an auditor's perspective, can you give like view only access to these agreements to auditors?
So the actual file that's in Ignite.
Yeah, I guess they could go to Ignite. Yeah, okay. They wouldn't need, they should have Ignite access.
So short answer, that sounds like a good way. There's a way to do it in the software too. Yeah, I want to understand more what the auditor needs, but that's, yeah, I'm kind of liking just give them the files.
Yeah, it would just be like, you know, they come in, they're doing their audit of invoices and they have select a land payment one. We give them the invoice and they're like, well, how do I tie this back to an agreement? Usually, typically they can just go to Ignite and find the agreement. So that should be sufficient. I'm just
Yep. I'd be
off the top of my head following this through. So,
yep. So there is a nice link here. Let me go back into Payment Manager. So I'm in a collection here. I've got a link here from the collection, which takes me right to the agreement page. So, you know, conceivably, we could do like one of two things. We could offer a new export, which downloads all of the agreements, which I kind of don't want to do because then we keep all your agreements where they are. But it's possible if you wanted to give them access to this page, or and then we could just give them a link to this. But just give them the files, and it's probably the least intrusive option for you.
yep. So to me, this makes sense. I think we've got some follow-ups as far as like, you know, who's creating the collection, who's the approver, how do we set that up, you know, that matrix up. I am curious to know, like, okay, once you hit approved, like to see it come into Workday. So I think once that is up and running and it would be helpful to have another call just to bring the whole thing together. But I think so far it looks good to me.
Yeah, this looks good.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to hear that. Standing by for feedback. So payment lookup, sorry, really quickly. Payment lookup, I can just search anything that is previously paid or unpaid or just both. And I could search by my bookends. So date start and date end. I can click the calendar widget, or I could just type in the field. I can do recipients and entities and vendor IDs and all these other things, but I don't have to do those. I could do things, really easily. There are this many projects that need to be tagged by country, by the way. These are all non-tagged. We can do a bit of a data fix on our end to take care of that. But I pick my projects, I pick a date range, click submit, and then it's going to filter into this table. This table can be quite large, and there's an export here. The next thing that I wanted to show is this hold. Any payment in the system, I can put a hold on. When I do this, I need to put in a rationale and a description of what would be an unhold condition. And then when I save it, it's kind of gone. Where is it? It's over here. And if I want to unhold it, I can do so. If I want to read the rationale, I'm going to click no. If I want to read the rationale, I can read that here. And there's some interesting conditions associated to the holds, where if you have a hold payment that gets amended, so I'm holding this because somebody died, I don't want to send the check to them right now. Let's wait till we amend. So I'm going to put the payment on hold, but once we amend it, that payment on hold is no longer real. So we have a bit of a garbage collection that goes and prunes things out of hold where the original agreement has been modified. There's a couple more edge case automations in there that essentially keep it auto pruned to some effect. But that's like when someone dies or someone sells. You may have other scenarios where you want to hold. And I suggest that the team thinks about, maybe this is something that you evolve into after the next couple months of use, but you should evolve to evolve and document a use case for hold. Like, when does DESRI want to hold? When does Ranger want to hold? There's a day that Caitlin's not in, or Jesse's not in, or somebody else is going to be stepping into the responsibility. You'll want to have your methodology for hold payments just so that you have consistent utilization in the system. Finally, there's also a lot of risk from holding. And that is, if I'm holding a bunch of payments and I'm not paying them, that means I'm late. Now, maybe I want to be late. Maybe I don't want to pay because we're holding for a real practical reason. But in other cases, I held last month, but I forgot to clean it up. That's risky. So there is possibility to create automated reporting surrounding the hold log, like send you a report of what's on hold weekly or monthly or something like that, just so that the team has visibility on it. I'll leave that for the teams to think about. But be mindful that the tool is there and it's helpful. Also be mindful that it carries risk and it should be used in very specific cases. And like all things in AP, you will benefit from having an SOP and a documented procedure and workflow. Same thing with the controls process, same thing with these hold payments. You'll benefit from having some documentation. We're here to talk about the tools today and the concepts. There's void for us to go through. There's articulating your approval schemes. And then we'll do more training. We'll do this stuff again. The first collection you do, we'll probably be on the phone when you do it. It's not that complicated, but it's important. So we'll be there with you every step of the way as you get up and running, and then even weeks, months later, doing reinforcement, checking in, and so on. Caitlin, you have met so far me, maybe Catherine, you hear Aaron's voice. The Green IT support team is available to help with this interface. They are accessible to you. They have an email address, support@greenit.com. We have an 800 number that's in my address or my signature in my email, but you could also reach them by going to support and filling out a request. The Green IT support team is well positioned in this interface and can help you with, like, how do I click this button, or like, why am I doing this? We can answer conceptual questions as well as technical. And similarly for DESRI, and the DESRI folks seem to have better rapid access to the support team. I just want to make sure that the Ranger folks recognize that you have access to the same support team, especially as you're getting started in a new tool here. Please lean on us. We're here to help.
That sounds great.
Cool. So I think that concludes our payment manager training today. We'll let the teams work amongst themselves. And if we don't hear anything in the next week, maybe we'll reach out and send a little nudge to check in. Our goal is to help y'all get to go live and get cracking in the system. So any questions that come up along the way, we are here. Otherwise, I'm going to stop our recording. If I can figure out how to do that.